What up? I'm Jake Palumbo, and this is How to Be Rich When You're Not Famous.
I'm Jake Palumbo. I'm a scrub from Tennessee who moved to New York City 12 years ago with about as much chance of making it in the music industry as a farmer has trying to grow corn in Afghanistan. I'm just like you. I had no money, no connects in the music industry. The difference between me and my peers who were trying to break in at the same time is I didn't quit like a little bit. Instead, I set out to decode the codes and to build my little dirt empire one brick at a time. Since the front door to the music industry was locked, I decided I was gonna find a way to break in through the back window. In 2018, I'm still not famous, but I am happy to report that I'm a few months shy of a decade of surviving off just my career as a producer, engineer, and artist. I'd like to share with you some of the things I've learned, as well as my core philosophies, as well as have an outlet to vent so I don't strangle somebody to death. I'm Jake Palumbo, and this is How to Be Rich When You're Not Famous.
So we're gonna kinda have two different types of videos as this series goes on. Some are gonna be very targeted and specific. This is how I do this. This was what I figured out about this. There's gonna be tangible, specific episodes that deal with a certain topic like that. And then there's gonna be what I call core philosophy videos. A general mindset or way of thinking. One of my favorite movies as a kid was The Karate Kid. In the beginning, you know, Mr. Miyagi is having Daniel do very menial tasks around his house. He has to sand the floor, he has to paint the deck. And you know, as time goes on, Daniel-san gets frustrated, thinking none of this has anything to do with his pursuit of martial arts. Until Mr. Miyagi steps up on him trying to whoop his ass, and he suddenly is able to defend himself because he realizes that all these motions are the same as sand the floor, paint the house. Before I get into how to fight back against social media algorithms, before I get into how to get shows when it's really tough to get shows, you know, before I get into how to monetize a very small fan base and still make some money. Before we get into any of that stuff, and especially before we get into any kind of technical stuff, I'd like to delve into some core philosophies. As much of a cynical wise ass as I can be at times, I am a firm believer that your attitude influences the outcome of a situation. One of the biggest, most common mistakes that I see artists and producers and anybody who's trying to break into the music industry, one of the biggest mistakes that I see them make on a daily basis is to have a very misguided, self-defeating attitude that not only causes them to say a bunch of bitter sounding stuff that, you know, doesn't look good to the people reading it. So let's get one uncomfortable truth out of the way right now before we say anything. No one, man, woman, child, animal, mineral, vegetable, is guaranteed, deserves, and is definitely not owed a career in the music industry. That might be an uncomfortable pill to swallow, and it is what it is. But once you do swallow that uncomfortable pill, it liberates you to a degree. Let me ask you a question. Do you support every artist that exists who's out there? Or do you support the ones that you like? People don't buy things that they're guilted into. They don't support things that they're guilted into. They might, but it's not going to be long-term support. Long-term support is only bred when you have created something that connects with people, that makes them feel a certain way, that strikes a particular chord with their emotions or what they've been through in life. You have to have created a piece of art that has value in it, that is going to connect with somebody somewhere. And then you have to have put time, research, sweat, and to some degree money into trying to reach those people. Now, support comes in a lot of different formats. You know, it's not just money always. It can come in the form of buying an album or buying concert tickets or buying a t-shirt, or, you know, it comes that way too. And also it comes, you know, people can support you with their eyes, by viewing your content, with their clicks, by giving you social media traction, with their comments. You know, that is support also, like it or not. Some of that support puts direct money into your pocket. and some of it does not. Now, the support that puts money directly into your pocket is best, of course. I mean, we all like that. I like it best when people buy a t-shirt, or people buy an album, or people say, Jake, how much is it for you to rap on my song? Or, hey, I need to get 3 beats. Can you cut me a deal? What kind of, I like that. But at the same time, I also am equally appreciative for the people who are paying with their eyes and with their clicks. Because while that does not directly put money in my pocket at this very second, it creates a funnel cloud of a buzz, that I can then use to parlay into helping open other opportunities for myself. So once we have processed that uncomfortable pill to swallow and have came to the realization, anyone who engages, likes, supports, buys, tells a friend, in any way contributes to the betterment of your content, that's a blessing. Okay? So if it's 10 people, that's a blessing. There are literally people out there in the world right now making some sort of art that 5 people don't give a fuck about. So if it's 100 people, it's a blessing. If it's 10,000 people, it's a blessing. And I've just seen a lot of, industry peers and, even people who I like and respect and enjoy their music, block their own blessings with a self-defeatist attitude like that, instead of being grateful for the people who were tuning in. And I feel like that's one of the mistakes that I at least didn't make along the ride, was, even when I only had 100 fans, when I only had 500 fans, when my numbers were very small, rather than being bummed out and thinking, oh, this is all a waste, I decided, I want to make those 100 people, or I want to make those 500 people feel like the most special folks in the world. And that, they're riding with me on this journey, and I'm going to make it as entertaining for them along the way as I possibly can by being entertaining and being real. Once that has been achieved, you can then move into the next stage of adjusting your attitude. And the realization that the journey is kind of the prize. 2017 and 2018 were breakout years for me in terms of, working with artists I haven't got to work with before, playing venues I've not been able to play before, signing my first deal of any type. Those things only happened after I stopped tripping about what I don't have and started being grateful for what I do have. When I started looking around and thinking, you know what, instead of viewing this from the viewpoint of, I'm getting old, I'm in my 30s now, I haven't blown up, I never played the big stadiums, I've never been on a major label, like I don't drive a fancy car, like, the sound is changing, like whatever reasons you can find to be a grumpy Gus, and tell yourself that none of this pursuit is worth it. It was only when I stopped tripping about that and started being grateful for what I do have. Like, thinking about, I've made a living for, knock on every wood surface in the studio, what will be 10 years in a couple months. It has been, a few months shy of 10 years since I've had a 9-to-5 job. My combined pursuits of, being a producer, being an engineer, being an artist, I even do odd jobs sometimes, helping people get their copyrights registered, get their publishing registered, retrieve royalties online, things of that nature. I take all types of odd jobs, and that all adds up and amounts to a living. It was when and only when that I started being appreciative of the fact that, if I got hit by a bus tomorrow, I lived in New York City for a decade without punching a clock, paying my bills, eating sushi when I wanted to eat sushi. Got to work with a huge list of some of my favorite MCs and some of my favorite artists, But it was only once I learned to be comfortable and grateful for where I was at, and not tripping about what I hadn't achieved yet, or what other people who were in the same rat race as me had achieved. It was only when I stopped giving a fuck about any of that and started being grateful and thankful that I can wake up every day and go to the studio and make my living, that somebody walks around there wearing my t-shirts. The realization that, like, literally nobody could be listening, but some people are listening. And and being grateful for the fact that some people are listening. And you know, artists week after week, month after month, year after year spend their hard-earned money to come into the studio and get their records worked on by me. Changing your attitude alone will not bring success. I mean, that still requires hard work, educating yourself, making calculated decisions, and assuming a degree of risk. But I will tell you that not changing your attitude will block your success. What's up, guys? If you've got a question that you would like answered in a future episode for our mail call segments, you can email jakepalumbo@gmail.com. That's it, folks. Live from the Space Lab. This is how to be rich when you're not famous. Feel free to leave a comment below as long as it's not stupid. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and we will see you next week.